Hey everyone, I'm 27, female. I've been married to my husband for 1 year now. My husband Tim is 28 and unemployed. He is jobless by choice. Why? Because he thinks that since I am the more educated one amongst us, I should be the one to provide for the family instead of him. He was not like this when we started dating. We met during our university. I made the dean's list, and he dropped out. I assumed it was because it was overwhelming for him and that he would eventually figure his way out. Several jobs in this world do not require you to have a university degree, so I was hoping he will figure out where his passion lies and how to have a stable income despite being a dropout. When he said his passion lies in gaming, I understood. He decided that the best action would be to focus on his YouTuber and Twitch channels. I was supportive of his dream. I know I sound like I did not believe him or his dreams, but I assure you I did. 2 years before we got married, he told me his idea and I supported him. But in the last 3 years, he has done nothing to increase the reach of his channel. He casually streamed his games, he was not regular with them either, and he refused to use any of his social media accounts to increase the reach of his Twitch. He did none of the things that he should have been doing, and the whole pressure fell on me. Before the wedding, the pressure was not that much as we were not living together for an extended time, but right after we got married, I realized the stress. When I communicated that with him, he started saying that since I got the degree, I am the one who's capable of earning more. Then I should be the one doing it. I should be the one to do a 9 to 5 job and earn money to provide for our family while he works on his Twitch. I agree because I figured I would be able to figure it all out. But then his demands started flowing in. He wanted 4 monitors, a good gaming rig, a high quality camera, all premium services on apps he used, and a lot more. That was costly, and I slowly had to start taking up more jobs. By 3 months into the marriage, I had 3 jobs. When I tried to communicate with him about expectancies and money, he went off on me. He has gone as far as to tell me that when his channel takes off, he will be supporting me as well. I told him that I appreciate his excitement, but it would be great if he could get a job at first and parallelly run both of those. That way, the stress would not be on me constantly. I told him that my managing 3 jobs just to keep everything afloat was affecting me a lot, making me completely exhausted, but he could not care less. He simply did not care at all. I could not even recognize the man I loved, so understandably, I started talking less with him. I focused on my jobs, making sure I earned enough and I could keep us afloat. Every time I tried to talk to him, it would end up in a bad argument that would ruin my mood for the next 3 days. We would spend time together. I'm not saying we did not, but I stopped speaking with him about things that mattered so much to me, especially work and bills and everything. I suppose that is where different things started being left unsaid, and the more things stayed unsaid, the fewer things we had to talk about. But I still loved him. I did my best to provide for him. I would come home, cook dinner for him, make sure he ate properly, would do his laundry and lay out his clothes for him in the morning before I left for work. I was doing my best to be the best wife for him. The only thing I could not give him was the physical bit of things. I did not have the energy to have sex with him every night. He would ask every night, and I would refuse every night. That started becoming a huge topic for our arguments, which was a bother. I tried explaining to him that with me working 3 jobs every day, I cannot provide him with sexual intimacy, but he could not care less. It was like I was speaking with someone who simply did not want to understand. It was hurtful. It felt less like a partnership and more like a solo venture. I felt like I was the only person doing things and giving things in this relationship while he did not care. But somewhere I thought I was being oversensitive. I know that I am overstressed, so my being oversensitive to the stress was not surprising. It was a hypothesis that I was desperate to believe, but everything changed when I saw him in bed with my sister. My sister, Amy, is 25. She has always been somewhat of a princess. When she was born, She was very ill, and that caused my parents to be extremely protective and coddled her. No matter what the situation was, they would always choose Amy over me. It was strange. Somewhere that behavior got to Amy, and she too treated me just as badly whenever she had the chance. She genuinely believed that I did not deserve anything good in my life, and when I started dating Tim, Amy was not happy about it. She had often tried to seduce Tim, and each time Tim had brushed her aside. When I told our parents about the situation, my family told me that I was being insecure and I should allow Amy and Tim to have a good bond. Despite my refusal and displeasure, Tim and Amy were often clubbed together. I knew that Amy was coming over to my house often when I was not home because it was on the way to her apartment, but I had not expected her to sleep with my husband. When I caught Tim and Amy together, I was shocked and disappointed. I was extremely upset with both of them, and they dared to tell me that I had this coming. Amy smiled and told me that I should have been there for Tim, and if I was, then this would not have happened. Tim agreed with her. In his eyes, I was an absent wife, and I should have been there for him, but since I was not, he tried to find comfort in the arms of Amy. It hurt to see them act this way. It was like I was the one who was being completely unreasonable by being angry about my husband cheating on me with my sister. Even my parents gave their 2 cents, which were along the lines of, if I was there for Tim, then he would not have gone to Amy. Hearing all of those things made me angry. I'm not someone who would go for a screaming match. Instead, I decided to be petty. I was the one who was paying for everything that he was using, which included all the premium services of Discord and Twitch, etc. So I decided to seize control of all of those things. I took over all of his accounts because he is an idiot who keeps everything logged in on his PC. I spent a good 30 minutes meticulously changing every password and recovery method for his accounts. I also stopped cooking his meals for him. It took him a day or two to realize how everything had changed because he was too busy hanging out with Amy these days. But now that I have done all those, he is not very happy with me. But it is my turn to not care, and I can't be bothered by his displeasure. TLDR. Stupid husband cheated on me with my sister, so I took control of all his accounts and refused to be there for him the way I was before. He is not too happy with me. Update 1. Hey everyone. Thanks for all the sweet comments that you guys have been leaving. You are so sweet. You guys are better at giving me comfort than my parents and my family were. Yeah, essentially my husband left with Amy to live at her place after I caught them because I was being melodramatic. I told my parents about the whole situation and that Amy was sleeping with Tim, but they were very dismissive. They kept saying that if I had been there for Tim, Amy would not have successfully seduced Tim. If I was a better wife, Tim would not have cheated on me. All of their vile words were thrown at me, seemingly ignoring the fact that their other daughter is a homewrecker. It stressed me out so much. To everyone who thinks it's hilarious that I changed all of his passwords, I think it is pretty hilarious too. He moved back in after 2 days with Amy because Amy is not a cook, and she lives with 4 roommates. And when he came back and found that I had not prepared any food for him, he was very upset with me. I told him to contact Amy for the dinner instead. While that did earn me a scathing phone call from my parents who inevitably heard from Amy what I had said, I do not feel any guilt. I think this is the best course of action. He deserves to be treated like a child if he's going to be a childish guy. Update 2. Thanks to everyone who insisted that I should get a divorce. I have filed for one, as you guys suggested. I spoke with a few of you guys in the DMs who helped me with the legal side of things so that I do not end up financially crippled after the trial. I appreciate you all so much. I have given him the papers and he was not happy with me. He told me that I'm being overdramatic by wanting to break up with him. He even said that Amy was just a fling and he would be more than happy to let her go just for me, which was not the statement he was saying when Amy was around. Tim was not at all guilty of cheating on me. He justified his actions until I gave him the papers, and then he changed his colors. He is as useless as a paperclip, and I do not want him in my life. I told him that clearly, and I have a feeling that I have to deal with his drama for a while until he signs the paper. But I am hopeful that eventually he will sign the papers. Amy is doing her best to get Tim to sign the papers because she thinks having Tim would be the best thing. I suppose because Amy does not have a reality check, she thinks that Tim's Twitch channel, which has 25 followers after 3 years, would take off and she would have the best life. Well, she can have him if she wants him that badly. Update 3. The divorce went through and now I am without a leech draining me of my energy and money. I'm very happy that I do not have to deal with him anymore. I've been divorced for a day and I feel so much better already. As far as Tim and Amy and my parents are considered, I have decided to cut off contact with them. I saw the way they behaved and I realized that if I am cutting off Tim for the sake of my mental health, then it is better to cut my sister and my parents off as well, just for the sake of it. I am looking for a job that is on the West Coast so that I have an excuse to move away from them, and once I have the opportunity, I'm not planning on coming back. Wish me luck, guys. I want to get away from here. Update 4. Tim and Amy are getting married. I'm confident that they will have an amazing married life. I could not care any less. I'm currently on the West Coast and I do not plan on going back to them. This wedding gives me another reason to cut them off, so I am considering this as a W. Thanks for being here for me. Your husband needs a reality check. Who in their right mind behaves that way? LOL, I love your revenge, OP. NTA, you should get rid of him as soon as possible. You deserve someone who is not as draining as he is. Next story. Female 30. When I first married my husband, male 36, and moved in with him, I decided to give my stepdaughter my old dresser and nightstand from my parents' house. My set was much nicer and she loved it, so we got rid of her old dresser during the move. It's been about 4 years now. My husband and I have a 2-year-old daughter and are expecting another girl in February. We have been co-sleeping with our daughter since she was born, and she has shared our room, but now we need to move her into her own room. I have always wanted my children to have my old things from my childhood, and that included the dresser set. When we gave my stepdaughter the dresser, I had made it clear to my husband that once we had children, our children would be using it since it is mine. He agreed and still agrees with me, so we decided to discuss it with my stepdaughter. She was upset that we were taking it away. We tried to ask her to downsize her things so that she can store her clothes in the closet, but she refused, saying we should just buy a new dresser for our daughter. So after she left, we decided to leave her clothes on her bed and take the dresser out ourselves. After she came back the next weekend, she waited until we left the house and moved the dresser back into her room. My husband had another discussion with her, and we let her know that was unacceptable. Now her mother is involved and is calling us, telling us we are being unreasonable and should just buy a new set. The thing is, my husband and I have also decided to stop buying new clothes for my stepdaughter, as we already send her mother child support, and we need both the money and space. Once she grows out of her clothes, she will not need a dresser, so there is no point in buying a new one when we need to save money. Update. My stepdaughter is 13, and no, we did not tell her beforehand that it was a loan, but it was expected of her to give it back if we asked, as we are the adults and the parents. I don't think it's wrong to ask her to bring clothes from her mother's, as she only visits every other weekend. Update 2. After reading the overwhelmingly negative comments, I can now understand why my actions might seem selfish. As you read, there were other things that we wanted to give my children from my childhood, and some of those things were my old toys, which I also gave to my stepdaughter. She had no issues giving up those toys for her sisters to have them, so I assumed it would be the same for the dressers. We have given it some thought and have decided to let her keep the dressers until she outgrows them, and we will just buy a new one for the other girls to share. I honestly didn't think this would blow up like it did over such a small issue. YTA. I have no idea who you think you are, but you are one thing: an extremely terrible stepmother who is very selfish and apparently only cares about her own flesh and blood. Your husband is still required to buy his own daughter things even though he is paying child support. You gave her the dresser and nightstand without telling her the deal behind it. You cannot take it back. You told the wrong person about the deal, and now you have to deal with the fact that you cannot use it for your own flesh and blood. I used caps lock. Maybe that way you understand how wrong you are. Next story. Throwaway. AITA. Asking because sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy or like I'm toxic. Female, 25. Lost my job last month through a disciplinary process in which I was accused of something I didn't do, and decided to quit rather than ride it out as I'd been unhappy there for a little while. The circumstances of this situation were very difficult, and I struggled with the transition, and I'm still ashamed and embarrassed by it all, even though it turned out for the better. Landed a better job with insane benefits after a day and a half of resigning. I told my partner, male, 31, that I didn't want his family to know the circumstances of me leaving my last role. He could tell them I quit under difficult circumstances and that I had to find a new job very quickly, but not all the ins and outs. Example, she was accused of this, gross misconduct, this is why, etc., etc. This morning it turns out he's told his mom and brothers everything, despite me asking him not to. And then, when I said that wasn't okay, calmly, and he's not respected my boundaries, he went off at me and has accused me of trying to control how he speaks to his family and what about, and arguing that since it's been a while, he thought it'd be okay. He said since it's impacted his life too, in that he was staying with me while it happened, and that's it. No financial committal or personal implications on him. It was his experience too, and he's allowed to decide how he speaks about it. AITA for feeling upset by this? And am I asking too much? Edit, to add context. We're not married. We've only been together for a year, and I've only met his family a handful of times, so it hurts that they don't know me very well and now have a negative impression of me. RE, the gross misconduct. I was accused of working for a competitor, but have evidence that it wasn't the case, but chose to resign before the investigation had even started rather than use that evidence. I also was on suspension for a total of 2 days before resigning, and that is what I found embarrassing. Along with changing jobs so close to Christmas when I discussed an upcoming promotion at my previous role with my friends, family, and mentioned it to my boyfriend's family, so they'd know leaving was a flash decision. His mother and brothers are his family. He looks at you as just his girlfriend. You had a boundary, but you're just a girlfriend. So he can just ignore it because you are not family. And he made you being let go as him going through something. That's like a man saying, this month's menstrual cycle was hard in the us. It's just so many red flags of disrespect still to come. NTA, but reconsider this guy. NTA, your request was not difficult. It was your experience and telling them that you left under difficult circumstances and quickly found a better position was as much as he should have said. Now that you know his stance on sharing your personal info against your wishes, you have 2 options. Don't tell him anything you don't want him to share or end the relationship. He sees nothing wrong with what he did, betrayed your confidence, and will do it again. He's very immature for his age. NTA, it wasn't about him. It wasn't about his family. It was about you and your private and personal life. He had no rights to cross your boundaries by telling private information that you explicitly told him not to share to the exact people you told it not to share it with. That's just malicious gossiping with extra steps. He doesn't get to act like the victim when not only he's the one in the wrong, but he's also not the one being hurt. Don't let him convince you that you must have done something wrong for him to betray your trust. Stay tuned for more stories from Our Girl Relationships.